We're here today to talk about AI and field service management. We're going to cover trends, truths, and the pitfalls. I'm Brad Hawkins. I'm the Chief Solutions Officer at ServicePower. I just actually had my 30-year anniversary pass working for this company. Right now, as the Chief Solutions Officer, I'm mainly in charge of product and pre-sales, but I participate across the board pretty much in sales activities, working with our professional services. My job is to craft solutions that bring value to our clients. So with me today, Tim Ayers from Assurant. Tim, I'm going to let you do your intro and title and all that good stuff.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Yes. Hi, this is Tim Ayers. I am AVP for Service Delivery at Assurant Solutions. I've been in my current role for about 5 years. I've been with Assurant for going on 10 years. Prior to the role I have today, I spent a career on the mobile side of the business working on carrier supply chain solutions, focused primarily on the concept of circularity, and all that required its own sort of AI. My current role is to lead our service delivery group. So basically, my team of about 100 people manage a network of about 1,200 service providers, probably 5 OEM/national service providers. And we're responsible for upward of 800,000 in-home transactions on an annualized basis.
Awesome. So first, let me start by saying thank you for taking the time and doing this with us. We really appreciate it. Let's jump right in. And I will tell you, as somebody who is I consider myself a bit of a technologist. I've had a fascination with AI, love hearing all the stories about AI, but let's back up a little bit first and let's talk about how many different types of AI are you familiar with? How does Assurant define it? How do you define it? Let me know your thoughts just initially on AI and what it is.
Yeah. So AI, right, is certainly a broad collection of many subcategories. And for us at Assurant, getting in the appropriate sort of context is important. In fact, just case in point, we had a meeting this morning on just predictive analytics. And I know AI is predictive analytics, generative AI, voice recognition, natural language, right? There's just a host of all these subcontexts, but we were just focused on just predictive analytics. And we probably used up half of our time just putting the predictive analytics element into the right context, exactly where we're applying it and how we're applying it and what did that mean to the discussion. So it's important, right? And we often at Assurant need to define what is the specific AI capability being proposed, or that is the topic at hand during most of our cross-functional planning sessions. But specific to my group and service delivery, I really define AI as the application of machine learning, problem solving, and cognitive capabilities to our processes, our customer journeys, and our decision making.
That's interesting. There's a lot that I take away from that, because my take on AI as it stands right now in the world is people like to throw around the generic term of AI.
Right.
And to your point, there are many types. And I'll name a couple that you named. I think one that I didn't hear you name is, we're constantly hearing about generative AI. We're constantly hearing about algorithmic AI and even rules-based AI. And the reason I say rules-based, because what's really interesting to me about that is people want you to justify, like, how is what you're doing AI? And I think that's been driven from, there's all these use cases, and you talk about, like, I think in field service, predictive analytics is probably having the largest impact right now, and the ability to use large sets of data. And you talked about machine learning. And to me, the key point to that, you're creating this data feedback loop that is feeding the artificial intelligence and producing the result you're looking for. But right now, when people are looking at AI, a lot of folks aren't defining them into those categories. Right. They're just sort of playing into the hype of, we're using artificial intelligence. And you're going to hear probably a bit of a theme with me today as we have this conversation of, people are to the point where we need to start drilling into use cases and understanding what's the specific type of AI that I can get the most value out of, depending on what it is I'm trying to accomplish. So what are the positive impacts? Because I believe there are some specific things you're looking at today. And what do you think, what are those positive impacts of those?
So with what we're doing today, there are several, and you touched upon a couple of them. Algorithmic AI is so key to what we're trying to do today at Assurant and what we're realizing in our journeys and our processes. But to your point, a lot of it gets caught up on what they hear, either the chat GPT or generative AI or chatbots, that kind of stuff. When to your point, it goes so much deeper than that. So where we're having positive impacts is exactly what you detailed earlier, in that AI is enabling the transformation of our business across the entirety of our customer claim lifecycle, or including the repair dispatch. And I think for the majority, I mean, at least for our journeys at Assurant, I think for the major appliance industry in general, it's in need of transformation. And it's been a fairly, in my mind, a sequential analog sort of process to date that's been relatively static for a very long time. And what we're looking at is across the spectrum of AI, where, and comparing that to our journeys, where is the opportunity for us to transform this, either to get better decision making, to make it improve the customer experiences, to be a better partner, whatever, to drive out cost, whatever the case may be. Where is there opportunity for us to transform ourselves? And we start at the time we pick up the phone, or that first point of entry, whether it's really whether it's a digital point of entry or it's a care agent that picks it up. At that point in time, we are looking at every single interaction that we have, every decision we make along the way, every process that we engage along the way as an opportunity to transform ourselves. And we're looking for some sort of, I would call them AI solutions, to enable the concept or the journey that we've envisioned. So for us, where we're seeing it from an AI perspective isn't really what I think a lot of people would think of as AI, which again would be the generative AI. Are we using that? Not really. Will we in the future? Probably. Or chatbots. We plan on using that. Are we right now? We're not, but we will in the near term. Where we're getting the most bang for our buck right now is exactly what you said earlier, whether it's predictive analytics or really at the transactional level, the algorithmic AI. So we have a history, many decades of history of transactions that we're applying this, using these algorithms to be able to diagnose a customer's issue, to make decisions based on the history, the answers that we're getting from our customers, to determine exactly where are we going to dispatch that event. And we treat each one of these as an event. So in our case, we're developing DIY solutions. We've never done that in the past. DIY solutions where a customer can effectively self-cure. They can service themselves, and we do not have to roll the truck, and the customer gets immediate sort of satisfaction from being able to affect a durable outcome, if you will. It also gives us the ability to predict needed parts based on our history, based on the symptoms. We can predict with a high degree of confidence what part is needed. So then we can effectively order the part at the time of the claim. So not only just, hey, we'll be there on this day at this time, but also we can couple that with, we also know what the part is. We can communicate to our technician, hey, here's the part that we're going to send to the customer. And this is what we found from the diagnostic script that we applied to this event. So we get a one-time, first-time visit, and we cut days out of the turnaround time. So for us, what we're seeing from a transactional perspective, applying the predictive analytics or algorithmic AI to our journeys today, results we're getting are tangible and they're immediate.
So you said a lot of great things there. I may end up just repeating back and like maybe saying something in a different way here, which is, again, I go back to where I think AI has advanced is that we can now break it down into specific use cases. So when you talk about, all right, when the customer first calls in, I can now, in theory, I can apply some level of artificial intelligence to understand what's the best way to triage this event. What is the least likely outcome of what I need to do here, or what direction does this event need to go? When it's turns out I do need to roll a truck, can I predict the part? AI can play a role in there. There's a number of ways. You guys talk about you do smart routing. You could have algorithmic AI. I would think that's the type there in that case that's going to understand who am I sending that's going to create the best outcome here. So I have seen sort of a cycle with AI that it started out as all this hype. Everyone just saying we use AI. You use AI to make decisions, whatever, but they weren't getting specific. And now we can get much more specific and say, I can look at AI for this specific purpose, and here's how I use it, and here's the type I use. And to me, that's the exciting thing, is it shows we're actually moving forward. I missed plenty of opportunities in your end-to-end process there, but AI can play numerous roles in that. And I know that's the transformation you guys are going through as well.
100%, numerous roles. Like I said, I really can't think of any event across the claim lifecycle or the dispatch lifecycle where we're not considering, where we don't have it on the roadmap, or we don't already have it in production, or we don't have a proof of concept. I can't think of any time in that customer event where we're not applying AI in some shape or form. But it's not the chat GPT, it's not generative, it's not the sexy stuff. It is the bread and butter, sort of grinded out kind of AI.
The data driven, and it highlights the importance of clean data, a proper feedback loop of that data, so that it's learning along the way. So absolutely. Correct. Give me your thoughts on the pitfalls of AI in field service management.
So there are a couple of pitfalls. I would say, again, this is mostly from our experience, are the data and the expectations. And I think for us, one of the hardest things, it was harder than I probably anticipated, is to temper the expectations associated with not only just the outcome or the efficacy of it or the ramp, the time associated with it, but the level of effort required that a closed feedback kind of continuous improvement process requires. A lot of what we found, and again, I work in an industry that has lots of makes, lots of models, lots of products, lots of parts, right? It's very fragmented. And I work in a company that's used to kind of mobile products. This is a much different model. This is a much more fragmented model. And therefore, we get our data from a lot of disparate sources. And because of that, all of what I do is data dependent. And if you don't have clean data, even if we try to use fuzzy math and clean up the data, I did not expect the accuracy or the effectiveness of some of our solutions to fall off a cliff when you're trying to normalize for data. Even though I was aware of it, the need for clean data and to get consistent sort of data has been a grind for us. So if you don't go into this understanding that up front, then I think you're going to end up disappointed. And along with that is sort of the commitment to continuous improvement into closed feedback. And again, understand this is just an iterative sort of grind. If you think you're going to go in and you're going to predict 70% of your parts on day one, and you don't understand that it's going to take years, right? Months, years to get to 70%, and you have that commitment to being okay with 3% and 5%, the continuous improvement, then you're going to oversell your effectiveness, probably disappoint, and you run the risk, I think, of your enterprise or your clients or your customers abandoning what is promising emerging technology that will transform the industry. So I just think people get caught up in the sexiness of it, and they miss the sort of commitment required from AI.
Right. There's an oversight required because, I'm going to back up first and tell you, I've been very vocal in the AI discussions I've had at ServicePower, and I wish I would have trademarked this phrase because I feel like part of it is we're going through what's going to be called the great data cleanse. Without accurate data and that oversight I'm talking about, I am going to, I thought, should I share this story? I'm going to share a story real quick with you. it's an AI-based story, and it's about Amazon Fresh. Not sure if you read about them. They're closing down most of the Amazon Fresh technology, where you could walk in the store, cameras are watching you, and you're grabbing items, and you walk out of the store, and using AI, it knows how to bill you. They're shutting that down because what they finally came out and said was they were miscalculating, losing money, shrinkage, because things are going out the store without being caught. And what they came out and came clean about was, well, we had 1,000 people in a warehouse watching those cameras to try and validate that what we're even doing was working. And it turns out it wasn't. So I think, we're at a place with AI now, or at least what that story highlights is, you have to have an oversight of what you're still doing. Yep. We're not to the stage yet where you can just say, all right, I've implemented this, I've got my data feedback loop. Am I getting the results I expect? Is it accurate? Is it actually accurate? To your point, I can't come out of the gate and expect that I'm going to 70% of the time predict the part. So as that's happening, is it learning and getting better? And am I noticing like, hey, right now I'm only at X%. How can I improve the data to improve that percentage? So I think one last thing real quick that is a pitfall of AI, and especially in field service, because for some of these like algorithmic AI, we don't know how it can be exploited yet. I know in other areas of AI, specifically like generative AI, that can be exploited all over the place. So I think, again, that's part of that oversight process of we gotta have people who are mindful of these technologies that we're implementing, and are they giving us the result that we expect? Again, to your point, everyone can't just think, hey, we're now using AI. This is great. We're going to get this result. You really have to monitor in the beginning.
Yeah, that is one thing that I do. So at Assurant, we have a whole AI division now, just committed to what is the emerging sort of regulatory? I know we can talk about this later. Is it going to come? Yes, it will. What sort of oversight are we applying? What are we learning from one another? So it's something for us that we've implemented in the last year. And I kudos to Assurant for taking that sort of approach to it. But for me and my processes, to your point, oversight is key. So while I have sort of an AI process, and that's going to be our go-to going forward, usually what I have is a proof of concept or a simulation or a parallel sort of process that I run that is more analog, if you will, right? But has that human oversight. So nothing we do here doesn't have an alternative model that we can compare the outcomes and the results. And nothing that we do here doesn't come without that sort of human oversight. That is a must. Yep. You can't, I think the pitfall would be you just turn the keys over to AI and let it go. You are exposing yourself on many fronts, right?
You're asking for it.
You're asking for it. Well, fraud, regulatory, who knows, right? Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think we've both mentioned this already on to the next question, that there's a ton of hype going on when you talk about AI. And I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit already. Is there any other additional comments you want to talk about of what is hype versus reality?
The hype is sort of the illusion or the perception that they focus on the outcome, or they focus on the capability, or they focus on a specific use case. And when you try to apply that, to your point, to a specific use case to which you've never applied it before, the reality is, to affect that outcome is what we touched upon earlier, which it is a continuous improvement, iterative grind, and it is not easy to do. So again, it is not a magic bullet that is plug and play ready that you just apply to your process one day and off you go. Most of these, especially when you're trying to affect outcomes at a transactional level, it is incredibly difficult. And I think the level of effort required and the level of continuous improvement required, I think that's lost in all the hype sometimes.
Yep. I'll just add to that, and I say this with the utmost respect to anyone listening in marketing who works in marketing. But the hype to me is every company says they use AI. And what I do is I encourage people to dig in and question that. Not question whether they're using AI or not, but question like, well, when you say you're using AI, what type are you using? What process are you? What problem are you solving? What process are you enhancing or making more efficient? Because again, there's so many different definitions of AI. Some are more powerful than others, I believe. And so when people come out with statements of we're using it, I have seen companies come out in the field service world, especially, and say, we have an AI tool. It's revolutionizing field service. And I'm like, you probably don't have one tool. You have a process that you're trying to make better, which means you're leveraging certain things along the way. That's what most are trying to do, exactly like we've been talking about. So yeah. I just encourage people, dig in when someone tells you they're using AI, because you'll find out what's real and what's not when you do that.
That's a great point. And in fact, we have been very proactive as we've gone to our clients or even for internally to document our journey or our dispatch lifecycle and be able to just call out specifically exactly where we're applying AI and what it is we're applying here and where we are with it. So whether it's on, in the audit process or a chatbot up front or predictive, wherever, we're calling it out specifically, anticipation of that, because people are going to get there.
Yep. Okay. I think we're down to the final slide here. And really the gist of this is, where are we going with this? Where do you think things are headed in the future?
So to your point, and how is it being perceived today versus the reality? And I think that right now, people like to say, yeah, we're using AI. Everything you just said is exactly right. And I think what could be happening is they're committing to AI with actually thinking about what the outcome they're trying to achieve is, and specifically how AI is going to help them. So rather than start with a vision and what do you want to transform and do you actually want to apply AI here? So that's a really long-winded way of me saying I think probably, and to some degree, and my degrees are like in finance and econ, so I always go here, but from an econ perspective, I think the investment in AI right now in this environment, they're probably over-indexing relative to the productivity they're going to realize, if you just want my take on it. Yeah. So I think what'll happen is, I think it's, probably there's going to come a time in the not too distant future where you're going to see the contrary to all the hype that's out there today. The reality will start to come in, and maybe you'll see people pull back from some of these investments that they're making in AI today. But that doesn't mean that by any stretch of the imagination, AI isn't going to begin or going to continue to transform the way business gets done. It will. It's inevitable.
Right. I mean, it's table stakes right now. I already believe it's to that point where if you're not leveraging something that's AI, you're behind times. I'll just share another quick story again of, some of the things I've been reading about it, which is as the technology continues to improve, becomes more usable in specific use cases, the size of the data, and, we talked about the cleanliness of the data, but I think people will start to learn how to marry more data into that equation, and it will become a much larger data set that can now be even more powerful. And I'll throw in like one last buzz term that I keep hearing is what's coming in the future, and it's more of a global thing, even beyond field service, which is that data set is going to become so large that's when something like quantum computing, which is we're on the verge of that too, that can process these data models so fast and get you the answer and predictions and these type of things. So that's where I see it's going as well. We're not there yet, but it's exciting times. And I'll give you one last chance. Is there anything you want to add? If not, I'll happily.
No, I think in my space that I work in, which is really, in-home repair for major appliances, it's what I would call a target-rich environment. So there are so many sort of, to your point, table stakes, just base use cases that we can apply AI to that we've never done in the past, that just transforming us right now is what we're focused on. And like I said, it's a target-rich environment. There's lots and lots of opportunity, which means that we've been relatively static for a very long time. And that's okay. But to your point, whether it's quantum computing, I think it's only limited by the imagination. Mm-hmm. As long as people are imagining better decisions and better journeys and better experiences, it's going to continue to evolve. And we already have a roadmap for 2-3 years down the road on how we're thinking about this. I do think some of it's going to be tempered by, there is going to be regulation. It'll become that there will be emerging regulation. And I do think for us in managing our network of providers, There is even regulation outside of AI, but there's sort of that work regulation that's out there. So some of it will be somewhat, limited by that. But yeah, it's exciting. I think if, like I said, anything you can imagine, that's basically what the future will be.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, Tim. Appreciate you
bet.
taking the time to be with us. I just want to mention too, we're thankful that you've allowed us as a partner to sort of be at the table with you guys to talk through these discussions of the Assurant transformation. And we continue to watch you guys do great things. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, Brad. And you guys are a terrific partner. And as I said earlier, one of the problems is it's such a fragmented sort of industry, and there's a lot of data and a lot of that's, I think, a huge advantage for a partner like ServicePower for us is that we know it's reliable, it has wide adoption, we get great data. You're an enabler for us in our transformation journey. Without a platform like yours, we wouldn't be able to get there. Plain and simple.